Hello, everyone, and welcome to Medley Live. Jordan and I are thrilled to have a conversation today with Sloane Drake. It gave me a moment to reflect as we talked about this conversation, and it reminded me of something that my grandmother used to say. We're a reflection of the company that we keep. And it is extraordinary for us to have the opportunity to share someone whose time we have appreciated, whose insights we have learned from, and who we believe is really a change maker in the world right now. Jordan, reflect on how we met Sloane and tell us a little bit more about Sloane Drake.
Thank you so much for joining us. A classic I'm on mute moment. We've been virtual for many years now, and I still have those moments. But thank you so much, Sloane, for joining us. We're thrilled to have this discussion, and it's a privilege to get to know you, to get to work with you, and to get to share some of your genius with others. It's funny reflecting. I think it was 3 years ago now, because it was summertime. Right? Is that right?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, perfect.
We came up to New York. We had a meal together. We had a whiteboard. You shared a vision. You shared so much clarity in that vision. And we've been able to work together and create a really powerful way to support the growth of your people. And if there is ever, I think the world is in transformation right now. But the power industry is certainly at the center of that necessary transformation. And you and your CEO, Chris, have really seen that with such clarity. So we're excited to share a little bit more about your journey. I know it might be helpful to those joining us to share a little bit of your bio, as you're currently the Chief Human Resources Officer and EVP at Southern Company. You have been at Southern Company for almost 25 years, over 24 years, which is
yes.
When's your anniversary, Sloane?
It was February 4th. So I have been, it flew by with the blink of the eye.
Incredible. And you have had many different roles throughout your tenure. And you're also really involved in the Atlanta community. You're on the board of Georgia Public Broadcasting. And you also have shared how committed you are to your family and your loved ones. So anything in particular you'd like to highlight about your journey? Otherwise, would love to pass it back to Edith. I know she just had a couple of comments on things she wanted to highlight about you.
Sure. One thing I'll share, and I'm thinking about the journey and becoming a leader, I think we're always learning and we're always growing. And I'm reflecting on my very first VP position. I was following a head of HR for Georgia Power who was so beloved and so tenured. And I got the best advice from the CEO at the time, Paul Bowers, who said, don't try to be Leonard, just be you. At that point, Leonard had forgotten more about HR than I probably knew. And I think if I had not gotten that advice, I might have tried to position and model what I saw him do, because he was a mentor and a sponsor and someone that I had worked with and for years. But that gave me great insight into, and it's the lesson we learned in kindergarten, be yourself and do your best. But that was really powerful for someone going into a really big role. And the other thing I learned from Paul in that role is to really have a point of view and perspective about the business, not just HR. I was an HR leader, and clearly that's where I needed to have focus and to be thoughtful. But his expectation of all of us weighing into all the issues of the day was such a great lesson for me. And it's one that I think has really served me well over the years. And I get to do that every day, working with Chris Womack and the other leaders at Southern Company.
Well, let's spend a little bit of time on knowing your business very well. It was one of the things that struck Jordan and I in that first brainstorming session. Yes, we spent a lot of time talking about Medley. I have to say you were not a pushover. You've done the work, as I always do. You knew what choices there were from a learning development perspective. And you also knew that there was a real need, given the industry that you are in, to think differently with Chris Womack about what leadership skills and perspectives were going to be required in the future for leadership across your business. So for the benefit of those who are not familiar with the power space, and you are a subject matter expert, share with us a bit about what's top of mind for the industry and why really investing in leadership development in a different way was so essential for the future of Southern.
Yeah, the energy industry, gas, electrics, power, it is going through what might be a once in a generation type of transformation and opportunities for growth. And that is really exciting. And when you think about utilities in the past, that might have been companies and organizations that you thought maybe were a little bit slower and were protected by their regulatory models. And so you had lots of time to get leaders and people prepared because it just was moving a little bit slower. That changed almost overnight. And so it was really an aha to say, if we are going to keep pace, if we are going to be able to capture and really leverage this opportunity that we find, we're going to have to make sure that we have a workforce and a leadership team all throughout our organization who understand not only the industry and the business, the what's of what we do, but it's so important that they understand how to do that as leaders. And so leading and supporting and being advocates of development. And it really just was an area that we knew that we had done so well for years. We're known for our talent development and our thoughtfulness on building a base and a pipeline. But because of just the pace of change, it really caused us to have to think differently. And we rethought a lot of our talent strategies, our development strategies, reflected on some things that we did in the past that we knew were good and wanted to refresh. But it really was a method of being able to be ready to seize and leverage these opportunities that we maybe had not seen for 20 years.
And the other thing I think is interesting to highlight, Sloane, and to learn from you is how you think about your team. You have people who are in corporate, so to speak. You have a number of companies who have been acquired over the years, and perhaps you've also highlighted often that perhaps the most important people who are people out in the field. And how do you think about your approach on leadership development, given the diversity of roles and of people that work at Southern companies?
You know, I'm in human resources. It's a corporate function. And some days it could feel like I'm working in any company. And then a storm hits or a catastrophe hits. And it really reminds that we are here to make sure that our communities and our customers and the people that we support have power. And the people who do that for us every single day are the people that are in our plants. They are working on our transmission lines, our distribution lines. They are our gas employees who are going into people's homes. It really helps you think about an organization that has so many different types of roles and experiences, and wanting every employee, whether they are out working on a line or sitting in a corporate office, to feel like they have access to develop and grow, to focus on those parts of their business that they want to learn better, or those parts of the business that they want to learn and explore. And so I think it gives us a really cool opportunity to think really holistically and varied about how we deliver talent and leadership support that might not happen in an organization where everyone looks and has similar roles. And so it's a competitive advantage for lots of reasons. But it also keeps us on our toes, because what you do to develop a lineman, for example, is very different than what you will do for an accountant. And that is changing faster and faster every day.
It's so interesting because, you know, you have to strike the balance of course, meeting people where they are in their different roles, coming from their different perspectives, locations, you know, all the above, while also really creating that one organization and connectivity. And I just wanted to share, I had the pleasure of being part of one of our program kickoffs in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago. And a couple of things were very, very clear. Firstly, is the deep pride that everyone has in the work that they're doing. And people were reflecting and sharing highlights and challenges over the past year. And I've sort of hovered around the room and heard multiple stories of people sharing exactly as you described, Sloane. Oh, there was this sort of incredible storm, and we were able to all pull together and call in, you know, different people from across the company to actually rally and take action much faster than otherwise. And I think that it's that undercurrent and connectivity and pride across the organization that has been certainly a driver of success so far, but also the real investment that you have insisted on making in people right now as we're in this moment of change.
I'll tell you, I don't mean to cut you off, but you just said something, and you talked about the relationships and people talking across the organization. And in every organization, relationships are important. I think at Southern Company, relationships are important with the capital R. And one of the things that we have found is that when we collaborate and partner and not try to do things individually based on your operating company or your functional area, but really find ways to work as one team, we solve problems one way. We're able to then share that across the organization versus everyone feeling like they're having to do that on their own. And it really served as a foundation for a leadership experience that we co-created with Medley to think about how we would do that in response to what we know is a changing industry and wanting to dive deeper into our leadership and talent development practices, but really also reinforce the importance of relationships and collaboration and making sure that we're doing that as one team across Southern versus doing it as individual operating companies or business units.
I appreciate you bringing that up. We just for those joining, would love to give a high level summary of what we have done together. Part of the why behind that. So we have partnered to help power the coaching through a comprehensive.
Howard, that was good, Jordan.
Well done.
Through a brand new, as of 3 years ago, Leadership Academy. And Sloane, I'd love for you to share a little bit of the why behind that, and also how Chris, the CEO, and others in the C-suite really had serious buy-in, but essentially having leaders across the organization at various levels, starting with the most senior, actually participate in group coaching program where they're engaging groups of 6 to 8 people, meeting over the course of 8 to 10 months. And so, Sloane would love to share more of the why, because I think many being able to really make an investment and create a program to meet the needs is unique, honestly. And it's hard, especially in this moment of change. So we'd love to hear more about that.
Oh yeah, gosh, my pleasure. I love talking about the Leadership Academy. So when Chris Womack moved into the chairman and CEO role, one of the first conversations we had was really his desire to reinvigorate our learning and development. Chris is by far one of the most intellectually curious, lifelong learners I've ever worked with. And he expects that of us, he supports and nurtures it, and really is bullish on that is how we will continue to be successful as an organization. And so in talking about, what does that look like and how do we get some more enthusiasm and just refresh it, one of the things that I remember when I joined the company in 2001 was this magical place called the Southern Company College, where leaders from all across Southern came together to talk about strategy. We call that the what's. How does the organization run? How does the industry run? What's important to know about being an electric or gas utility professional? We also then talked a lot about leadership, and that's the hows. How do you lead through organizations? How do you be a leader that supports development and growth? And that leadership, or that Southern Company College, Chris was a member of, lots of our senior leadership team is a member of. And so it became such a natural thought to say, why don't we reimagine and refresh that college? And so we branded as our Leadership Academy. We call it the master class. We started that very highest level of the organization, spending days. They go through 5 sessions where they're learning about our industry, our company, leadership. And as a part of that, this real need to connect back across the system, because that was one of the benefits of the Leadership Academy, is that leaders from Alabama Power were sitting next to leaders at Georgia Power, and they were building networks that then they went back and used to get work done faster, more efficient, better. And so in meeting with you guys and spending time, and I have to say, one of the things that blew me away about Medley was just how vested you were in understanding Southern Company, what we were hoping to accomplish, and we co-created. It was not that I felt like it was you had a product and I could take it or leave it, but I felt so much like we were doing this together. And you don't always get that kind of experience when you partner with folks outside the organization. But being able to have the Leadership Academy, have people network and spend time, we're already seeing the benefits of those relationships. It's only been a few years in. I am 100% biased, but I am thrilled. It is doing everything we imagined and more. And the best part is just some of the feedback that we have gotten about the group coaching in Medley. And I will be honest, some people were a little weirded out. And, leaders sometimes, never at Southern Company, but sometimes senior leaders don't think they need that type of experience, or don't know that they're going to value a coaching, or have a negative connotation of coaching, that it's something that happens when you've done something bad. I can't tell you how people have been so supportive. Over 80% have shown up to every single session. That is amazing. Over 90% are very satisfied with their experience. Over 90% are saying that they're using it right now in their work. And everyone, 100%, has said they will not only stay connected to their coaching groups and spend time, but they are taking that back to their organizations and sharing it. And they feel valued and appreciated by Southern Company, which again is the perfect sweet sauce of what you're trying to do when you're building on that kind of leadership experience. Sorry I gushed, but it's been amazing for us.
It is wonderful to hear you share about your experience, specifically that we do co-create. We believe, and I quite frankly believe, anyone who is working in a client-facing business really must, as the first instance, invest in understanding the priorities of the client's business. And that is important because, we are in an environment that is ever changing. Sometimes it's every minute of every day. And so we have to understand together how we think about creating a leadership development framework that is adaptable and applicable to all sorts of circumstances. Sloane, this is not going to make you very comfortable because you're not about you. I'm going to go back to you for a moment because you've highlighted the significance of developing relationships. To start, you highlighted that there was a conversation that you had earlier in your career that positioned you for a mindset to explore, to use your voice. How would you suggest others get the experience that is required, the confidence that you clearly have, with the humility that you also project, to really move through an organization like Southern Company's? I'm sure there were times, there were challenges. Perhaps there were moments that were not a part of the plan. If you could share a bit more about that journey, I'm sure people would very much learn from you.
Oh gosh. So I think I was really lucky. I joined Georgia Power in a development program. And so at the time they were wanting to hire soft skill majors, so psychology, sociology, to really round out the workforce planning. And I was a psychology major. And when I was hired, I was told, you really don't have any skills. We want you to come, we want you to learn, we want you to ask questions, we want you to rotate around. And after about a year and a half, we'll place you in a full-time role. So to go into an organization where I had no expectation to deliver and I could just be curious is something that I didn't lose. And I still do today. And I think that is what has been really helpful. I also have worked for some really strong leaders who gave me really, really candid feedback. And I know everyone doesn't get that, but it was things like what I mentioned earlier, you have to have a point of view. If you don't know something, go figure it out. Don't pretend that you do. I worked for a leader in HR who beautifully demonstrated the thought that you surround yourself by the best talent you can find, and then you get out of their way. You support them, you block and tackle, but you let them do the exact things that you hired them to do. And I got to benefit from that. I got to go spend time in meetings and work on work that was really value added and hard, and it stretched me. And I think back to my first VP role, and when I had my first board presentation, I think it was 10 minutes. I think I spent 20 hours preparing and prepping, and I was a nervous.
I'll relate to that, Sloane.
Oh my goodness. And I heard my father who said, just like you've owned it, just fake it till you make it. No one will know that you're nervous, and no one knows the data, the information better than you. So just go in there and do it. And so are there still days that I worry and I wonder, but I have realized over time that I will figure it out. I have a great team of people that I work with. We survived COVID, and any HR professional who's listening knows how scary and demanding that work was. And so again, I think it just gave me the ability to be human and give myself some grace. Some days I think I knock it out of the park, and some days I'm just glad that I get to come back and have another day to try it again. And I just tend to think about it kind of like that. That keeps me grounded, I think. And friends and great colleagues who are not afraid to tell me when that was dumb, or we shouldn't do that, or what are you thinking? And that is important and as valuable as I think you guys probably realize.
Absolutely. You have to continue learning while also making sure you stay close to the people and experiences that give you energy and give you continued fuel. Looking ahead towards the future kind of relates to that. You mentioned some of the things that are giving you that energy. What questions are you grappling with right now? What problems and challenges are you spending a lot of your time and energy on?
Yeah, so I think probably like most organizations now, it's technology and AI, and so it's managing between the mixed emotions of people being really excited to get and use technology, and then this fear and concern that it's going to replace me, or we're going to take the human equation out of that work. And so at Southern, we are working through that. We are approaching it from a literacy and an education model. We want people to be excited. We want people to experiment with AI. We have a tool that we've created in-house so people can do that safely, because we really think that it will augment and automate the work that we do, that will then allow people to go do more value added, maybe more enjoyable work. It's less about using it as a way to take away a bunch of people and talent out of our workforce. So getting involved in that, and AI is fascinating. Every day I learn something new, and the enthusiasm around that I think is amazing. But helping our organization use technology is something that will be a journey, and I don't know that we'll ever feel like we've done it perfectly, but it's something that we're really working to figure out how to do that more effectively than I think we've done it in the past.
Could you share a little bit more about the operating model that you all have as you explore and try to answer? Because I think that's really important. I'd love to others.
Yeah. One of the first conversations was really about that human component. How do we do this in a way that one is safe, that we're not exposing people to things that we shouldn't, kind of through the technology? And so it's an AI steering committee. It's made up of human resources, so myself, our general counsel, and then also our technology organization. And it's a little bit of a think tank. So as we are using test cases around Southern to explore how we can use AI across all of our functions, that group meets to, one, make sure that we're doing it in a way that's safe and ethical, and that it's actually doing the things we need it to do and not potentially putting us at risk or harming employees.
Makes so much sense. And I think that's a reflection of, and also sort of consistently we've seen across organizations, that there's so much, it's absolutely critical for various C-suite business leaders and stakeholders to really be sort of lock and key as we sort of answer some of these bigger questions. It can't just sit in one part of an organization, and communication across functions is just, baseline mission critical. So thanks for sharing.
Very much so, very much. And again, really getting out and helping to educate. And like I mentioned earlier, an AI literacy model is one of the things that we're working on, so we can go back to leadership and give them tools and resources, because that's how this will really become something that permeates our organization, when leaders grab onto it and are able to demonstrate and help those employees that are still a little bit worried or concerned about what this will actually mean for them at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So AI is certainly one of those things that is top of mind for many organizations, and really pleased that you gave us some insights as to your organization's approach, with the core being learning, experiencing, exploring. I'd also say that in my conversations, the macro environment has presented challenges. Uncertainty can be an opportunity, but mostly it can present barriers to decision making. You don't decide to build a power plant and it launches in a year. Investments are long term, they're strategic, and must take into account not just today, but the future. How do you and your colleagues at the leadership of Southern companies navigate the macro environment? You've highlighted that you operate in Alabama, Mississippi, clearly Georgia. There's all sorts of different stakeholders in each one of those states and environments. How do you approach it? And what lessons have you learned and advice might you share? Because we're all trying to juggle it.
Yeah, I think it goes back to some of the things that we've talked about. It's, instead of thinking about it that the Alabama team has to think about those issues independently and solve them on their own, what we're finding is Mississippi will figure out a way to do something and respond to a growth challenge, and we'll share that. So the leadership team, we spend a lot of time talking and sharing what's going on, making sure others are aware of situations and opportunities and successes that are going on so that we can leverage them in other parts of the business. And again, we are all working with an avid lifelong learner. And so there's a constant thirst for what's new and what can we learn. And as a team, we spend time listening to experts and external advisors to help us understand that macro. And so when it comes to making those very specific decisions about Southern, that we feel like we have the information and we're informed to do that. The other thing about the electric and gas utility industry is we are really collaborative together. And so information sharing, there are amazing partnerships and consortiums and places where we go to spend time and talk and learn and to share what's happening in the Southeast versus the Northeast versus the West. And so it's all of us doing it together. It's constantly learning and growing and thinking about what we need to know to do. And then I think being really transparent with our workforce and talking about the challenges, the opportunities, so that they see it and can help us solve it. We are not a company that thinks all the answers have to come from the C-suite. It is really about making sure that we listen and give chances for employees to talk about the things that they do and the opportunities they see for us to respond to some of those levers, those challenges, those opportunities.
That makes a lot of sense. Edith, anything you want to add, or I'm happy to wrap things up?
Well, I guess it's more of a comment than adding to what Sloane has shared. First of all, thank you for being a partner and also being a teacher. I find the utility space to be so relevant to so many aspects of our world, broadly defined. And you've been very patient in investing in expanding our understanding of the space. For me, the takeaways in our interactions, Sloane, has been that that you've got to always position yourself to know what you don't know, as an individual, as part of a leadership team, and as part of an industry. And so that's an important thing for me. What do you not know and who knows it? It's important to not just stay in your lane, particularly in a talent leadership role. And I would include in that anyone who's running a business, but particularly in the CHROC. You are extraordinary at what you do. And a part of that equation is that you have invested the time to really understand your world, but also the world that leads to impact and success more broadly, not just in the company that you work for, but in industries broadly defined. And that's the second takeaway. The third takeaway is know who you are, be human. That leads to confidence. And don't get too carried away. Go back to my grandmother. Okay, you've done a few things, but don't get too big.
That's right.
Because there are many people who know more. They might know different. And you bring that to every conversation. So back to you, Jordan, to conclude.
Thank you so much. And just thank you, Sloane, for joining us. We started off highlighting some of the things that we deeply value about you, and we're glad that others were able to get a sense of your incredible humility that is paired with sort of your deep expertise and confidence. And, I think something we didn't even talk about, but is important to close with, is over the course of the past 3 years since you've been in the role, the business has performed tremendously and has outperformed on every metric. And this is not the case of, we are shying away from investment your investments have paid return. You've invested in your people, and your people have done an incredible job. And so I think that's always something that we have to keep front and center. And I should have started with that. We should have pulled up the stock ticker. No, huge congratulations, because you have poured so much into your work, and it's really been incredible to see.
Well, you both in Medley are great partners. I love the work that we're doing. I'm excited for the work that we will continue to do. And thank you for letting me just have a few minutes to share some of the things that I get the pleasure of doing every day at Southern Company.
Wonderful. Thank you all for joining us.